So today's topic is about failure, uh, what it is, what it isn't, why we fear it, how we could think about it. And I chose this setting in particular because it's to me represents how in absolute, how not right or wrong anything is. I'm outside and there's dappled light and there's this waterfall behind me there, this wall of water, and it feels sort of like messy. It's not perfect. It didn't fail to create a certain, background. It's all mixed up. And I feel like that's sort of my thesis here is that perfection is a flawed concept. So we talk about failure as if it's something to be avoided, something that repels us, something that we fear, something that we make meaning of, that if we fail, we feel horrible, we feel shame, we feel lesser than, we feel disappointed. And I want to acknowledge that all of that can be true. All of that can be felt in a pure way. We can try for something and fail and feel bad about it. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't. But what I am saying is that the result of us feeling that dissonance of having failed or been rejected or got an outcome that we didn't want or feel humiliated, the residue that we carry with us that then has us like repel experiences where we might fail, where we try to avoid places where we might be at risk, we're making a mistake about the meaning of failure. So it's okay to feel bad about failing. And it's important for us not to for the take home message to be that we must try to be more perfect, because it's just a fool's errand. That's not a reasonable pathway for how we would live our life. So what I'm saying is failure is how we succeed. We make mistakes and learn and grow. Failure is relative. There really isn't many realms of absolute failure. The further out you scope and the wider perspective you have, the less absolute any type of failure can be. Failure is unavoidable. And failure is literally just process in motion. Life is trial and error. Life is an experimentation and then thought about that experiment. It's about trying things and deciding what you're going to do from the new place of information after you tried. So for fun, I looked up all of these stories about failure, quote unquote failure, that I want to share with us. Talk about people that you perhaps think of as wild successes. So we're going to start with the athletic realm. I'm going to talk about Michael Jordan, who's the greatest failure of all time. Michael Jordan has failed more than any other basketball player probably ever, but that's not how you think of him. Michael Jordan has lost 300 NBA games in his career, which is more than the vast majority of NBA players have ever played, meaning he's lost more games than the majority of any NBA player had ever played in the first place. He took 9,000 shots at goal and failed in his career, and he was given the ball 26 times for the game-winning shot and missed. But you don't think of him as a failure. Another popular example is Edison, the famous inventor, the father of so many inventions. Very famously has said of the 10,000 attempts that he made to create electric light, that you could say he failed 9,999 times, but he instead says, I just found 9,999 ways that didn't work. Constantly exploring, constantly experimenting, constantly encouraging himself in the process to iterate and keep going. You don't think of him as a failure now. You think of him as somebody who had success. But what we're really missing is the story of how he had an incredible mindset of the inventor. Another one that I love is a story about Sarah Blakely, which, according to some Wikipedia or Google searches, was the first female self-made billionaire with a B, or the youngest self-made billionaire in 2012 was when that designation was given to her. She's the founder, the creator of shapewear, of Spanx, right? And when she was first creating her product, she went into some store to pitch it to a buyer. I think it was at Nordstrom's or Bloomingdale's. I don't know about exactly the details of the story, but she felt like the pitch was failing. It was going south. The person that she was presenting the garment to kind of had all of those nonverbal signs of not being interested, leaning back, crossing her arms, saying, "No, I just don't think people are going to want to pay that kind of money for really ugly underwear that's just big and bulky." And instead of feeling crushed by being rejected, which I could totally imagine feeling, really putting yourself out there, making a pitch, hoping somebody will say yes, seeing that they're going to say no, she said, "Stop, come with me." And she got up and the woman's like, "Where are we going?" She's like, "We're going to the women's restroom." And she's like, "Okay." She went into a women's stall and she put on the shapewear with white jeans and said, "Look at my butt." She came out, she's like, "Look at my butt." And she's like, "Okay, nice." She went back into the stall, took them off, came back out again. She goes, "See the difference?" And the woman was like, "Oh my God, yes, we need this. Women will buy this if they can have their butt look like that in white jeans compared to without having them." So she just saw potential failure as an opportunity to like try again or try another way or be creative. I also like the story about Sarah Blakely that apparently around her dinner table at night, her father in particular led the conversation about to her and her brother, "How did you fail today?" And it was encouraged. It was almost expected that if you didn't make a broad enough overture, if you weren't going big enough in your daily life, even as a kid, even at school, to make a mess of something, to find a failure point, then you weren't doing it right. So she learned, she adopted an opportunity mindset from making failure okay that enabled her immense success, because business owners and industry leaders who create products that have never been seen before find all kinds of hurdles. Really good story. Okay, if that wasn't enough, I would say that musicians and Olympic athletes are failures all the time. That's why they practice to become virtuosos or gold medalists, is that they're constantly honing their craft, their skill, their ability to be ever more optimized for the right outcome that they're seeking. And that it's only always not what they want it to be, that we see sort of them standing on the podium receiving a gold medal or getting a standing ovation for their beautiful performance, but we don't see all of the ways in which technically they were failing towards their mastery. So I really just want to kind of inspire you to see that those that you revere, those that you regard highly, those that maybe you admire the most, you're only looking at the outcome of many, many years of iterative process and practice and failing forward and experimentation. That's the untold part of their success. And that's what we're so at a disadvantage of not knowing that part of the story, not knowing that that's where the information is that we most need, is seeing how to recover when things aren't going well or we're not progressing as we wish. So when we end up really making this binary experience of failure, either yes or no, pass or fail, up or down, good or bad, and we start to get afraid, what would happen to us? How might we feel if we don't have the outcome that we want? And that risk creates this psychological pain or foreshadowing of pain. I would feel like crap. I would die a million deaths. I would feel humiliated. I'd feel horrible. I'd feel so disappointed. I don't want to feel that way. And so what do? We get fearful and we go smaller. We hide out. We retreat. We play smaller. We edit ourselves. We assess the risk before we raise our hand or speak up. We worry. We perseverate. We think, if I don't, maybe yes, maybe no, pros and cons. And that has us avoiding action, avoiding risk, avoiding broad strokes, and into this other realm of what I'm always talking about is over preparing, over editing, over planning, because we think somehow that smooths out the path and makes it more likely for us to succeed. Right? Like, raise your hand if you feel like you have doubled down on getting ready and preparing and thinking and doing some actions to prepare for the big action. Like, I'm not ready yet. I still need to X, Y, and Z. Or once I figure out the foundation, or once I sort of sort out my thoughts about something. We always create these constructs of safety seeking to help us assure that our outcome, that the path will be guaranteed or more guaranteed for success. But it's really a fallacy that we're feeding ourselves, that we're trying to avoid approaching the risk that makes us feel scared. Is that resonating for you? So so now you want to know, like, so what do you do then? How do you handle that pain, that fear, that dissonance that has us hold back? The whole goal is for you to have your own back and to decide ahead of time what you're really doing. This is not a pass or fail life. You want to decide ahead of time. My self-concept is inside of me. What I decide about me is my success. That I like me, that I know me, that I'm expressing me, that I'm experimenting in the me-ness of my life. That our self-concept is disconnected from external validation, from right or wrong, from other people giving us a yes or no, from other people giving us a trophy or the award or the outcome or the prize. We have to have it anchored within. I think that's how we deal with the fear of failure. So that then we can explore, we can experiment, we can grow, we can try things, we can expand, we can test, we can interact with more permission given internally, that no matter what, I'm just living my best life. I'm just trying something out. I'm just giving it a go. So you might crave, like, so how would you do that? And we do a lot of that work, right? In completely competent leadership, with your self-concept, with having your own back, with forming a more objective opinion about yourself that you can rally around, and creating your victory statement. But for now, we could talk about, how could you just make failure a little bit more approachable, more fun? Can you just see it as a process of you expressing yourself, trying new things, living life as a lab, as if you're experimenting all the time? And if you really worry about what other people think, or what they're going to say, or how it looks, try over communicating what your perspective is. If somebody's like, "Ooh, are you really going to do that?" It's like, "Yeah, I might fall on my face, but I want to explain what I'm trying to do here is open up the channel for me to experiment things, even if it looks like failure to some." So it's like explaining, I'm giving myself permission to trust, try, fail, and then reevaluate. It's not do or die. Like, you can actually just be an example of it and proactively communicate it. Like, I'm giving this a try. It might not work, and that's okay. It's realizing that perfectionism keeps you stuck, and a decision to refuse to beat yourself up over unwanted results or messy results. So instead of you kind of coming at it like, I don't know if I'm good enough. I don't know if I've got what it takes. I don't know if I'm up for this. Try, I'm finding my own way, and using your own belief in yourself to be your guide. Okay. So when you commit to going bigger and having your own back and letting failure be part of a process, not a scary potential outcome, you'll stop worrying so much if you practice. If you start seeing yourself as creative, resourceful, and brave, you might stop worrying so much about any perceived pass or fail outcome. That when you start looking at what is working versus what is not working, you have the right mindset to encourage yourself to keep going regardless of outcomes. And it'll allow you to access the creativity that you really need and want to feel more self-assured and relaxed. Okay, so that's what I have for you today. I wonder how that resonates for you. I wonder how this lands. I wonder what objections you might raise or your brain might raise. And I'd love to hear your comments.